Hey there, welcome to another episode of Gimme Empathy. I'm your host, Scott Mercer. My guest this episode is the sound engineer, Nell Forster. Nell is the resident live sound engineer at the Bearded Lady Bar in West End here in Brisbane. Nell's one of the only sound engineers I've actually gotten to know over the years. Maybe I played a lot of gigs at the Bearded Lady. She just always seemed nice and not scary like some sound engineers are, and not angry for not knowing how a bass cab works or not being able to sing loud enough or whatever. She's always just generally cool. I'd never really talked to a live sound engineer about their work much before, so it's kind of interesting to hear about Nell's lifestyle, which is pretty unique, I think. Nell's also a studio engineer, and she records bands out at a place at Salisbury, and we talk about that as well. I'll keep the intro short on this one, so enjoy episode 33 with Nell Forster. So when did you wake up today, Nell?
I woke up at about 2:30, which is pretty early for me, to be honest.
Do you have do you call it breakfast if you wake up at that time of day?
I actually don't eat for a while after I wake up. I smash a couple of coffees and then eat when I'm hungry. So usually my breakfast time would be like 4 p.m.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if I woke up in the afternoon, I would feel weird eating.
Yeah.
I used to have a night shift job. I did the graveyard shift at the Night Owl in West End on a Saturday night, and I would eat when I got home, and because it would feel weird having my rice bubbles when I woke up in the afternoon.
Yeah. What time was that? Overnight?
Overnight. Yeah. So I'd get home at about 7 a.m.
Yeah. I do that all the time. So I'll finish the gig at I'll sometimes get home 2, maybe later if we're having a few drinks, and then cook.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Are you in a share house? Do you wake people up?
I actually just moved because that was a little bit of an issue for my old flatmate who was on a regular person's, slightly more regular person's clock.
Yeah.
And I've moved in with a guy just this week who is like me. I've actually woken up before him every day so far.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What does he do?
He works at the end as a bartender.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, how long have you worked that unusual?
Always. Well, no. I started out in admin when I left high school for 2 years and didn't like it at all. Really struggled. Late every day. It's just I've always been a night owl. Just that lifestyle doesn't suit me at all. So started working in bars and restaurants after that.
Right.
Yeah.
I usually start, Nell, by asking my guests, how do they know me?
How do I know you?
Yeah.
I can't remember how we met, but through doing gigs.
It must be.
Yeah, I think it was a We All Want To show.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
So, because you are would you say you are the resident sound engineer at the Bearded Lady?
Technically, that's my name, house sound engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, if you played gigs at the Bearded Lady and I played a few, you'll be there.
Generally, yeah. I recently went away for 5 weeks and had to cover all of my shifts and got a bunch of messages when the bands rocked up expecting me to be there. Oh no, Nell's not here. Everyone's just sort of gotten used to it being me most of the time. Yeah.
Well, let's go back to high school. How did you first get into music?
First got into music from listening to my uncle's Led Zeppelin records. And my mum's Donovan and Bob Dylan, my stepdad's Beatles, Rolling Stones, that sort of stuff. And then I took guitar lessons for about a year after school. Wasn't interested in the tech side of things for a long time. That came later.
Did you want to start a band?
Yeah, I tried to start a few bands. Actually, I did start a band when I was in London, but it was just a duo and we were both far too nervous to ever play live. So we'd just rent this little rehearsal space in Soho and jam once a week.
What kind of stuff?
As far as when we recorded as well. So
what did it sound like?
Grunge, I'd say, pretty 90s.
And is it just guitar you play?
Bass.
Bass.
now.
Oh,
Yeah, I
cool.
was playing bass then. I moved on to bass pretty quickly.
So if you weren't interested in the tech stuff initially, what eventually drew you to it?
That actually is what drew me to it. Well, I've always been pretty tech savvy, with computers and that sort of thing. My stepdad's a computer programmer, so I was kind of raised in that sort of environment, using computers from a pretty young age. Yeah, Paul and I, the guy in London, we decided we wanted to record. My flatmate dabbled in recording, so I got really interested in how everything worked, and yeah, that started it.
So what were you recording on back then?
We just used GarageBand, I think. No, maybe it was Logic. Yeah, I can't remember what he had, to be honest. Yeah.
And like mics, what kind of stuff did you have to work with?
Oh, it would have been dodgy, like 58s. Yeah.
58s aren't
I don't
dodgy.
even remember. That was so long ago.
I'm recording on 58s
Oh,
now.
yeah, I know. You can. They're great. But yeah, it wouldn't have been anything fancy. I didn't know anything about what a good microphone was back then. Yeah.
I started on like some super dodgy, like $20 J-car mics that were like battery operated, and it had like this weird double head. I think it was like was supposed to record in stereo or something.
Yeah.
And it was one of those like, you know, you can't really trust a mic if it's made of plastic and doesn't weigh much.
No.
Like it's a children's thing. And the biggest giveaway was it had a 3.5 mil jack, not a proper.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
like
hilarious.
like a headphone jack instead
Yep.
of a normal one. So when did it occur to you to like do recording for work?
Well, I came back from London. I actually didn't ever want to leave. I was going to get sponsored by my boss, and that fell through at the last minute. So I had to book a flight home pretty quickly.
What were you doing there for work?
I worked in a restaurant full time, and then I worked at the Brixton Academy behind the bar as well, which was pretty awesome. So I worked a lot. You have to work a lot if you work in hospo in London. It's too expensive, and the pay is terrible. So I worked constantly. My whole life for 2 years was working and drinking.
Wow.
And not sleeping much at all. Yeah. And traveling when I could get a weekend off.
Yeah.
And some money together. But yeah, I came back and I was really depressed. I really didn't want to be here. I was so happy with my new life over there. And I thought, like, what am I doing? I had previously thought that working in bars, my goal was to run a live music venue, but not from a tech point of view. I had worked at the Troubadour for a little bit just before I left for London, and I thought that place was the best, and I wanted something just like that myself. But then I kind of realized that I didn't want to work in bars for the rest of my life, and I wanted to do something different. Got into starting to record myself, you know, bedroom garage band stuff, and then applied for uni, and I thought I wasn't going to get in. I was the only one who did get in that couldn't read music, so it's a pretty full-on degree. And I thought, well, if I actually get into this degree, I have to finish it. I'm also not very academic by nature. I hate the whole academia land thing. But yeah, I got in, and then I was like, okay, well, the next 3 years of my life are doing audio now.
And was that an audio production course or like performance?
It's called Music Technology at Griffith Uni at the Con at South Bank there. So it's quite diverse, and you can sort of tailor it towards what you want it to be.
Right.
So a lot of the younger kids were doing a lot of electronic music production and that side of things, which has never really interested me too much at all. Not really that into MIDI or even very good at that sort of thing. So I did all the like live concert recordings and studio subjects and a little bit of like game audio, you know, sound effects for film and stuff like that. Yeah, it was really broad.
And so what made you pick live sound to go into for work?
Money. I also record, so that's my main focus. But until you get a big name for yourself, it's pretty hard to, you know, charge enough for the time you put in. But I'm starting to be able to do that now, which is pretty good. Still not enough to ditch live sound, and I don't think I'd want to ditch live sound altogether. But yeah, it just pays better.
Let's start with live sound. Like how does one? So you're fresh out of uni, you know what all the faders do. Mm-hmm. How do you break into actually getting a job around town?
I had a pretty unfair advantage there because I knew a lot of people in the industry, and a lot of the other graduates were way younger than me. I was a good 13 years older than most of them. So I got a job straight away. I knew the bar manager at the Bearded Lady.
Because you'd been working in bars and stuff.
Yeah, and I'd been
Right.
around the Brisbane music industry for ages as well. Just knew. I was very lucky. That's pretty much it. And it is the music industry, and it's all who you know.
Do most places operate like the Bearded Lady in that they might have a resident engineer and then just, if they need a fill-in, they can call someone?
Yeah, they pretty much all do have a resident or, yeah.
So I guess in that sense, the industry must be pretty small.
There's a lot of venues and there's a lot of people wanting days off. And I know a lot of guys who they won't be, they won't have one designated venue. They prefer to work 3 or 4 different venues in a week. So there's a lot of shuffling around and that sort of thing.
Where else did you get work?
Oh, I did a couple of shifts at Black Bear Lodge, and I did the Foundry once, and did this thing called Girls Rock, which was a whole week at the Foundry. Where else have I worked? I've done a couple of festivals.
Did you ever do Woodford?
No, I haven't yet. I'm thinking about it. I've always been too busy to go to Woodford at that time of year.
I used to cover it for 4ZZZ for a couple of years, and one of our main jobs was to record bands' live sets. So we'd go up to them, to like the audio engineers before the band started with a Zoom recorder and like 2 XLRs and just ask if we could plug into the desk. Because they were all told, like, they knew we were coming. So they're like, yeah, sure. And we'd just hang out behind the sound desk with them. So I got to meet a whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
except
nice.
for one dude who was doing the sound for Josh Pike, who I guess hadn't been told we were doing that. And so I rock up with my Zoom and my XLRs and like, hey man, all right if I plug in? And he was like, no. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing here? Like, I haven't been told about this. What's going on? This is a professional artist. You can't just steal his live sound or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, there's a lot of mixed opinions on that. As you know, I'm quite happy to record if anybody wants the gig recorded. Give them the stems, whatever. Like, it really doesn't bother me. But I know a lot of other sound engineers consider it their property, because they're doing the mix.
Like, I could understand if the band's gonna like use that actual mix and then like sell it on that level. Yeah.
See, that doesn't even bother me.
Oh, okay.
It's local bands. Do you know what I mean? It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If they want to use it, they can use it. But I can see other people's point of view. And I think, especially with a big act like that at Woodford, I guess you'd need certain permissions, which you went for, you had, but he didn't know. Yeah.
And we did always have to like chase up the artist afterwards and get them to sign a release.
Yeah. If you're going to do anything with it, yeah.
Yeah, and they were usually cool about that because we were only putting it in like a package that would be played like once, and it would be a snippet of 2 or 3 songs probably, and everyone was pretty cool about that.
No, I don't mind at all. I sometimes when I have time, I like to mix them. It's fun. It's good practice doing live mixes. They're actually a lot harder than something that I've recorded in the studio, which is recorded well. The live stuff's never going to work out like that.
Yeah.
So it's much harder, and it's really good practice to mix those.
Have you ever like mixed a band's live set and then like send it back to them and they've like used it for anything?
Yeah, yep, a couple of times. One of them, Zong's first ever show was at the Bearded Lady, and they released that. It's on Bandcamp now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they paid me for that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so that was work. It turned out pretty good, actually. Like, I was pretty surprised at how easy that was to mix.
So how did you come to work at the Bearded Lady?
Well, at the time, my friend was managing. I loved the place. It's a great bar. I went there quite often as a customer, and a couple of my mates from uni were doing shifts there. So I went along to do a bit of training with them initially. And then Judd, who was the house sound engineer there since they opened, started getting a lot of touring work and was just less and less available. So I was super keen, loved the place, got along with the staff, just got asked if I could take his job pretty much. And I went, yep.
Doing sound for few of the different venues around town. How do they compare? Like, are there any acoustic quirks of the Bearded Lady you've gotten to know over
Well,
the
yeah,
years?
definitely. It's one of the worst rooms. Which means, like, I remember I don't remember who it was, but someone told me once, you'll have the hardest job as a sound engineer when you're starting out because you get the shittest gigs and you're new. You get the worst rooms, the worst gear, and then as you get better, you it's just easier anyway because it's a better prepared setup.
Well, you must be good at your job because whenever you're there, whether I'm playing or seeing a band, it usually sounds pretty good to me.
Well, thank you. But I have been there for a while now. I think it's been 2.5 years doing most of the shifts.
So what are some of those acoustic quirks at the Bearded Lady?
Amps, no, it's all high end that really bugs me there. Cymbals, it's so hard to keep anything at a low volume unless the drummer is playing to the room, which, I mean, I understand it must be very hard, if you're trying to rock out and tap something lightly. Some people are really good at it, most aren't. And you've pretty much got to bring everything up to the level of the cymbals and the snare.
That dictates like the whole...
It really does,
Wow.
because otherwise you're going to have a shit mix. Like quite often it's too loud in that room and I get asked to turn it down and I just don't want it to sound shit. So like if I turn it down, it's going to be snare and cymbals and all the high end. It depends on the amp tone, but the high end of those guitar amps, it's ear piercing in that room just because it's all brick, everything just flies around.
So is it better like for guitars to have the mids turned up a bit more than the highs?
Well, yeah, even mids can be a bit harsh. It just depends. There's so many variables. Lately, I've been trying to get people to turn the amps in so that they can hear themselves on stage and it's not as ear-piercing out the front. That works really well. We've been putting the drums in the corner. We've carpeted the stage walls. That sort of helps deaden the cymbals. One of the main issues there is having the drum kit right behind the vocal mic. As soon as the singer steps away from the mic, it's all cymbals. There's all sorts of problems there. But it's a great gig.
Have you had the chance to like make some improvements to like the gear and the set?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Buying carpets for the walls and whatnot.
Yep. Moving the subs has helped a lot as well. We're actually buying a lot of gear at the moment. So it's pretty exciting.
What other things do you have to keep in mind as the person who's most often doing sound, like in terms of other aspects of running the Beardo, like I don't know, sound levels, like finances? If you're requesting all this new stuff, do you have to like take that into account?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty close to the owner, Robin. She's a legend. She's good with money, and she lets me know when she has a budget. The funny thing is I also do a little bit of booking there. So if we've had a good week with bookings, she'll be like, all right, we've got a budget now. I want the business to make money. I'm very involved in the business and I want them to do well so that I can get better gear. So it's kind of, yeah.
Would you say it's generally difficult to, run a live music venue in Brisbane? Like hard
financially, yes, especially because of the size of it. I mean, if you go, and also we're not in the valley. We don't have as much foot traffic. The venues in the valley don't necessarily have to rely on the gigs to bring people. We kind of do to an extent. I know the Foundry, for example, do really well after the gigs, just as a bar. But yeah, because of the size of the bar and our capacity being 100, there's only so much money you can make.
And do you deal with like sound restrictions if you want to, put on a DJ after bands or something like that?
Yeah, we do. We have certain times we're allowed to have music and dB limits and that sort of thing.
I guess in the Valley they'd be more liberal because
they're a lot more liberal in the Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of those venues don't have to worry about restrictions like that.
Well, let's talk about studio recording now. So you've got like a shared studio at Salisbury, is that right?
Yeah, so it's called Aisle 6. The owner, it's never really been for commercial use, as in a lot of studios will, the band can hire their own sound engineer. Scott sort of just works there himself, and we're really lucky. He's just renting it out to myself and 2 guys I went to uni with, quite cheap to help us kickstart our career. And it's great. It's a really good little studio.
Like, what bands have you recorded so far?
Ooh, my first actual where I was the producer and had a lot to do with it was a folk singer called Harrison Knight. He's a good friend of mine. So that was his first solo LP. Recently did a band called the Ragtone Ramblers. They're really cool. That'll be coming out, I think, in June. I got to do some extra tracking for Paddy McHugh's recent album, Ash Constance. I think she's going by Rambling Ash or Ramblin' Ash. She's done a little EP with me. There's a bunch of other bands that their stuff hasn't been released yet. I also got a really great opportunity. A friend of mine, Rhys O'Neill, invited me to come down to Melbourne and record. We spent a week in Sound Park Studios down there recording to tape, 15 songs. I slept in the studio. It was just the best experience of my life. I'd never used tape before. We didn't use tape at uni. It's too expensive.
How did you work out how to use it?
Well, it wasn't too much different, and the guy who ran the studio gave me a run through. I did pretty well, I think. Figured it out?
Are you going to mix it all on tape as well?
It's already been mixed, actually. Reese and I mixed it ourselves, sort of going back and forth between Melbourne and Brisbane, sending each other mixes and ideas and that sort of thing.
And was it actually done on tape, or did you...
No, well, so all the bed tracks were recorded straight to tape. The overdubs weren't.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so we were going from the sound source to tape and then back into Pro Tools.
Okay,
yeah.
So you weren't
no cutting
out.
Of tape or anything like that, unfortunately. Yeah, that'd be really cool though.
Was that the longest recording session you reckon you'd done?
Yeah. It was awesome. Although, with Harry's album, that took us a year. I don't even know how long that took, but we did it very slowly, bits and pieces at a time.
There's something really magical about having, setting aside a block of time and going away somewhere to
record. I love that. I much prefer to be completely immersed in a project than stop-start all the time. Definitely.
It becomes like a school camp or something almost, and you forget what the world was like on the outside.
Yeah.
And you just wish you got paid for. Well, I guess you were getting paid for it, but
I was getting paid. I'm gradually increasing my rates as much as I think I can get away with or people can afford. But to be honest with you, hourly it really doesn't work out to be much until you're charging really big.
Yeah. When you're recording, do you have producer role models or idols or people you really look at and go, I like that person's sound, I want to kind of do stuff like that?
To be honest, I'm not very good at being a nerd like that. I don't research much. I did have to for uni. I mean, I like Steve Albini. I like his ethos more than anything though, his attitude. But no, I kind of just, I'll listen to references of music that I like and use my ears more than trying to read about what they did, Yeah, I'm not much of a researcher.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'll be based on particular songs. I liked how, the snare sound on that one song when you listen to that, rather than who was it that recorded
exactly,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm terrible at names. I'm terrible at all that stuff, so I don't really do it much. I should, but no.
What's the most fun thing to record as an engineer?
Fun. I like doing live bands in the studio. That's really fun. I get really into it. And I have actually, I'm at a stage now where I don't want to record anything that I don't really like. It's not a job. It's not worth it. I'm not getting paid enough to do anything that I don't want to do, basically. So luckily I've got pretty broad music taste, but yeah, I just don't want to record something if it's going to be a hassle for me. I want the band to be well prepared. I've done too many times I've gone into the studio for very little money and had a really shit time, and it's not worth it.
What makes it a shit time for the producer?
When the band haven't structured their songs yet and they're not ready to be in the studio, that's sometimes a problem. Sometimes that's good if they're good at, if it's the vibe they're going for and it's a little bit improv, that's cool. Or if they want me to take more of a producer role and help with the songwriting and that sort of thing. But usually that's just a waste of time. I like them to come in and know exactly what they want. And I like to have already heard the music. Like I usually get them to record a rehearsal or something so I can start thinking about the kind of sound I want and what I'm going to use.
Will you go see them live?
Oh, yeah, usually most of the bands I've met through mixing them live. So, yeah, most of the bands I've recorded.
Apart from where you are out at Salisbury and the Melbourne one, what studios have you gotten to record in?
Plutonium's good. A friend of mine is like the house engineer there now, so I've been in there a couple of times. That's a good studio. I think that's it. It's just those three, apart from uni.
I guess uni would be pretty high-end stuff.
No, yeah, it was. Honestly, those three studios had much better gear than we did at uni because students break things.
Oh, right.
We had some really good mics that I did get access to in third year, but they're locked up in the cupboard and, very, very expensive Neumanns and stuff like that.
Are they actually restricted to third years?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, they're very expensive. Oh. And they were only for use in the big orchestra recordings in the theatre, which was really fun.
How do you record an orchestra?
Well, there's a lot of different ways, but have you heard of a Decker tree?
No.
Where you've got three mics hanging from the ceiling in like a triangle shape. And then we'd have like an XY at the back of the room. And then you'd hang mics like 30 metres above. You get into the roof and hang mics over certain sections. Sometimes you'd have them coming up from the ground as well. Lapel mics on singers and stuff like that.
How many in total do you reckon to record an orchestra?
It depends. It really depends on the orchestra, and I've done a lot of this, but I think like the biggest would have been like 30 tracks, maybe, ish. Yeah.
And have you mixed sessions like that?
Yeah. That was our assessment. Yeah.
Wow.
To mix them, and it's totally different to mixing like a studio recording or a rock band or something. You want more dynamics. It's a lot more natural. Everything has to breathe. And
I guess in most of them, like percussion is not the central thing like it is in rock bands.
Yeah, exactly. That's one point. Yeah, but we had all sorts of music there at the con. Like there was a musical where it was all like choirs and singing, and the actual instrument section wasn't so big. And they did even do like some more rocky gigs in that space as well. So,
what does your working week look like between your funny sleep schedule and live sound and making time for studio sessions?
It's all over the place. If I've got a band coming into the studio, I'll have to replace myself at work and won't be working much that week. Lately, I haven't actually been recording for the last couple of weeks. I've been doing most of the shifts. So in that case, it's usually like, it can be, it's a weird thing. Like if the band wants a sound check, I'm doing maybe a 12-hour day sometimes. If they don't, it's more like a 6-hour, sometimes it's even a 4-hour day, and I get the same pay. It's not hourly, so it kind of just balances out.
That's really good to know. Like next time I'm not going to bother with a sound check just to give you a break.
It makes my job easier if we do sound check.
I guess.
It just means I got to get up earlier and leave the house earlier. Yeah.
So when you're doing bands, do you always schedule them for evenings?
Oh, I try to, but some people perform better in the morning. And I think the number one most important thing is the musician's comfortability and ability to perform.
So how do you perform in the morning if you have to actually wake up in the morning?
Terribly. It takes me a couple of hours to wake up. So I'm usually just smashing coffees. I try and prepare the night before. Like I'll actually make my session and I'll decide what mics and preamps and compressors and everything I'm going to use the night before or a couple of days before.
So all you need to do is walk in and push the button.
Be a zombie and patch it all. No, it takes a while. Like setup is usually an hour or two.
What's like the coolest thing you ever seen at a Beardo gig? you've been mixing?
Coolest thing. Oh, man.
Like recently, I played a gig with Marvel that you mixed, and at the end of their set, they did their Sonic Youth cover of 100%. And I've seen them do that cover a few times. I've seen them a few times this year. But this time, lead singer and guitarist Ash Curley jumped off the stage at the end in the guitar freakout and was just like holding her guitar up to the audience, and people were having a bash at it, and it sounded awesome because like she just had all this fuzz on it, and it sounded rad. Like stuff like that. What's unusual performance things?
I'm just trying to remember. I've got the story, but I can't remember the name of the band. It was a Sydney band. They were punks. They were really fun. And the singer was just jumping all over the place with the mic, running around. And you know where the mixing desk is there. I'm short. I struggle to see when it's a full room. So I was looking for him. I was like, where the fuck is he going? I don't know what's going on here. I can't see him. I walked out, and he was actually all the way down in like where the office is, in the doorway on the ground in the office, pretty much singing from there. That cracked me up. There's been a lot of moments like that, rock moments.
Do you ever get like worried about them breaking something?
They do break stuff. It drives me insane. We just had a brand new Beta 58. Like the actual capsule broke off, which I don't know how they managed that. Again, it was like a hardcore metal show, and we don't even know who it was because there were like the singer before had been quite crazy on the mic. But yeah, that happens a lot. Mic stands in particular. Nobody knows how to adjust mic stands, like by actually loosening things before you just force them.
Yeah, they are all different.
Yeah, they are all different. Yeah.
And some are just terrible. These ones are pretty good. I've had these for a while because I really like the arm. Yeah,
that is the most important bit.
Yeah, like if there's like the plastic thing on them,
they break.
They're shit. Like I've got another one like that. It's just worthless.
Yeah, everything breaks all the time. It's really expensive, especially the drum kit bits and pieces. They'll take, like we've lost so many clutches, hi-hat clutches, hardware, bits like that. You've really got to watch what people are taking out at the end of the night.
Should you maybe like just paint them all pink?
Yes,
so it's
I've
really
thought about that.
Clear.
I need to do it.
Yeah. That's why I used to with guitar picks, because my favorite gauge is grey, so it's really easy to lose it in any carpet. So I used to dip them in pink paint.
That's clever.
But I just go through so many that...
We've got so much lost property there that people leave behind as well.
Yeah.
Capos, tuners, picks, leads, patch cables.
All the things that people need.
Yeah.
That other people always ask you for.
Yeah. Just power supplies as well.
Yeah. What do you do for fun, Nell?
What do I do for fun?
You're not working.
I am a little bit of a party animal. I go out and I drink a lot. Yeah.
After work?
After work or instead of work. I'm going out tonight. So that's pretty much it. I sew as well.
Oh, yeah.
I make stuff.
What kind of thing?
Crafty.
Like clothes?
Yeah. Mainly altering stuff. Yeah, like buying op shop goodies and taking them up or, making something different out of them.
Oh, cool. Like a thing that's not an item of clothing and making it an item of clothing?
Oh, yeah, I've done that a few times.
Like
old
curtains?
retro tablecloths and curtains.
What's like the most recent thing you created?
Well, just the other day I made some this is boring, I made some couch covers, cushion covers for our new couch because I've just moved house. I haven't been sewing a lot lately because I've been incredibly busy with mixing work. So, yeah.
What do you do while you're sewing? Like, do you watch TV, listen to music?
Oh, no, you got to concentrate.
Really? So you just sit there in silence and
yeah, it's
sew?
really boring and tedious.
But do you find is it therapeutic while you do it, or are you thinking, this is so boring and tedious while you're doing it?
I get frustrated. I get really frustrated because it's really easy to stuff up. If I get something wrong and you have to sit there and unpick it for ages, it's not really fun. I think what I get out of it is I made this satisfaction and,
So it's fun at the end, not while you're doing it.
No, I don't really enjoy doing it, to be honest.
That's like the opposite of music.
Yeah, that's true.
I hate listening back to things.
Yeah.
But it's fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. It's the same for me. Like, I'll listen back to a mix I did a year ago and I cringe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's so awful.
Yeah. Any song I wrote more than like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yep.
And it doesn't get better as you get older.
Some people actually, there's very few people out there, but some of them enjoy listening to their own stuff.
There's like parts I'll enjoy listening to, and it's usually an instrumental bit.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with how it turned out. It's never singing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's usually just a tone thing. Like if we managed to capture a really cool tone on the day, or like, oh, those drums sound really big, we did a good job with that. It's nothing to do with the actual song.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. See, I'm the opposite. I like listening back because I think I get really into the people I'm recording. I'm like, fuck, these guys are awesome. And I play it for everyone because I think they're amazing. You know, I get really excited. But yeah, there might be issues with the mix that make me cringe.
When you're mixing, do you have bands like come in and look over your shoulder?
I would rather not, no. But I'm pretty willing to do a lot of revisits. I have had some bands like come over to my house because I mix from home mostly. I find it's a much better environment for me to do it in than sitting in the studio. So I'll invite them over and we'll go through what I've done and they'll suggest changes or like let me know what they want, but definitely not from scratch. Like that's just annoying and they don't know what they're talking about. So generally speaking, I'll have a mix and then get feedback rather than have someone sit in and mix it with me.
What are your ambitions as a producer? Where do you want to be?
I want to be able to make a living out of it. That's pretty much it. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be a millionaire. I would like to be able to work in a studio and not do live sound if I didn't want to. At the same time, I don't want to give up live sound altogether. But
yeah, well, how would that work? Like if you wanted to have so much good work coming in as a producer, like how would that work with...
I would be charging a lot more and doing less.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would still want to be a resident sound engineer?
Maybe not full-time,
right.
But I do really get kicks out of doing live sound as well. So I don't think I could give it up completely. And also, if the recording industry doesn't work out for me, I'm very happy to be a live sound engineer for the rest of my life, at this stage anyway. So,
do you like booking bands as well?
No, not really. I'm not into admin and I don't like business. I don't like promoting. I don't like any of that stuff. But at the moment, like I said, I'm like really into the place. I'm such a big part of the Bearded Lady now that I want it to do well and I get excited about bands that I want to mix playing there. So it's cool that I get to sort of choose the gigs sometimes.
Who is the worst group to deal with in the whole process of booking? So is it like bands, like promoters,
agents.
Media? Agents. What do agents do?
Sometimes they don't communicate with the bands and it's a lot easier if I just talk to the bands myself. Sometimes, not all agents, but sometimes the messages just don't get across between me and the band. You know, that drives me insane. A lot of agents don't get back to you in time as well, and you've got to hassle. I mean, I'm not naming anyone, but recently there was one that we actually had to go and contact the artist themselves because we weren't getting any response from the agent about a date, and we needed to know if it was confirmed. So that happens like quite a lot.
That's interesting, though, that bands aren't the worst
No.
unreliable people to
some of them are. It depends. Some agents are awesome too, but yeah, generally I'd rather deal with the band.
Do you have a favourite kind of music to mix, either live or in the studio?
I'm a big fan of acoustic guitars, so I love recording acoustic guitars. They're all different. I also love drums. I love recording drums. And my music taste is pretty diverse. Like I love my folk and my Americana kind of stuff, but then I also love really heavy stuff as well. And the 90s grunge stuff. That's, you know, I've even done a little bit of electronic recording actually, hip-hop. But I think acoustic guitars is probably the thing I enjoy the most.
How do electronic acts go live? Are they easy to
Well,
mix?
you're not really doing much. Usually they've got their own mixer. Yeah. And if they're an electronic artist, they tend to be quite tech-savvy. So they, generally speaking, they've already mixed it for you.
But I guess like with their mixes, like do you ever come across someone who, you know, they might have a good backing track that sounds good as a recording, but when it comes through, you know, a live room, it might not sound as good?
No, I haven't really come across that. I think sometimes I have to go up and adjust their levels a little bit, and you have to be really polite about that. Like, you got to sort of say to them, like, I don't think this is working. Can we try this? And if not, that's fine. It's your gig, it's your music, but it doesn't sound good out the front, kind of thing. Quite often they'll just give me a stereo feed, so I can't really change the mix.
Is there anything about keeping odd hours that you feel like you're missing out on?
Only that the shops close early sometimes. Other than that, life is better. I really don't like getting up early. It actually really annoys me that this is considered abnormal. My lifestyle of going to bed at, sometimes 4 a.m., sometimes later, and waking up later in the day. I live in Queensland. I hate the heat. So sleeping through most of it in summer is great. No, it's just really convenient, and my work is night work, so.
Did you find when you were living in London, was it more a normal thing?
Yes. People in all of Europe, I think, tend to sleep in a bit later. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Would you ever want to move there to?
No, I'm over it now. I went back recently after I've been back for 7.5 years, and I went over there for the first time since then, which was pretty trippy, seeing some old friends I hadn't seen in that long. But I realised they were all kind of still doing the same thing, whereas my life's definitely progressed since then, and that's simply because it's that hard to get by over there unless you've got a really well-paid job. I don't think I'd want to do that again.
You mean like they were still working in bars and stuff?
Yeah, most of them, yeah. Yeah, well, going to uni in London is impossible. It's pretty hard. A good friend of mine's just started uni and he's moved back in with his mum. It's super duper expensive.
Yeah.
Everything. We've got it so good here, and I think I took that for granted. I loved it when I was over there. I was a party animal. I was working all the time. I was younger. But now I've been back for so long, I'm pretty happy here. I don't think I'm going anywhere soon.
Not even Melbourne or something?
No, Melbourne as well. I love visiting Melbourne, but I don't really want to live there. I like knowing everyone. I like Brisbane's little community in the music industry here. Things are going good, so why change it?
Things may be going good. What's the worst part of the Brisbane music industry, though?
A lot of people don't want to pay to see live music. That really frustrates me. It's the price of a beer. Come on. What is your problem? The amount of people that come up to the door at the Bearded Lady and they'll be like, yeah, it's $10, 4 bands. And they're like, what? Turn around, walk out. It's ridiculous. And then they spend $100 at the bar. It doesn't make any sense.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea, to be honest. People think gigs, they shouldn't pay musicians. I don't know why anyone ever thinks that. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. Maybe, I guess because some places the music is free.
Yeah.
If you're in a big, was it AGL, Woolies or Coles own place, and they've got
money,
someone on a duo, an acoustic duo with a loop pedal doing Third Eye Blind covers or whatever. They'll probably be getting good money because the bar can afford it. Because
they'll
Woolies.
be getting paid. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it doesn't matter. Even the number of people there. Whereas in an independent venue, it really does depend on the door. So when
I mean, I'm a big fan of paying for gigs. I'm actually a hypocrite because I've asked to be put on the door for tonight, but I don't do that very often. I really don't do that very often. I'm usually very happy to pay.
Is it a pricier gig?
I don't even know how much it is. I'm just a bit broke at the moment because I moved house.
Right, yeah.
And they want to keep all my bond, which is $800.
Oh. What's the justification for that?
Oh, they think we didn't do anything. I'm fighting them. I sent a pretty stern email back last night that I'm waiting to get a reply from. It's an old place with stained walls and the carpet's been destroyed, but I think it's wear and tear. I've been there for 3 to 4 years.
Oh, so they think you didn't clean it?
Yeah, they think we didn't clean it. We bleached. We scrubbed the walls. I was there for 2 days cleaning because I was like, I want my bond.
Did you get photos when you moved in?
They've got heaps of photos in there. They're really anal, this particular real estate agent. They've just been assholes from the start. But, yeah. Yeah, I knew this would happen too. The condition report's pretty accurate from when we moved in, and it's got heaps of photos. So they've just told us that we didn't do any of these things that we did do.
They're probably just like shaking you down.
Oh, yeah.
And they just need you to fight back a bit. Like they're hoping you'll roll over.
As if.
Yeah.
Like that, just the $800 is my half. It's $1,600 they're trying to keep.
Wow. That's a lot, Bond.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about this place because it was also a bit run down when I got in, and the carpet was already shredded in a few places. There's like stains and stuff. There's nails in like all the walls, which is cool because I can hang a lot of shit. But I made sure to take my own photos as well, just to prove this was already like this.
Yeah, probably should have done that.
As like a young person in the creative industries, do you ever think you'll, settle down, own a house, do stuff like that?
I've never really wanted to do any of those things. I don't see that happening. I could change my mind. I have anxiety about owning things and debt. I don't have any debt. And I had a credit card for a little while and was constantly using it as my money and paying it back, and then finally paid it off, got rid of it. And I don't really want to ever do that again. I don't want a mortgage. I've never wanted children either. So I'm pretty happy to just keep doing what I'm doing and see what happens.
Are there people on the scene, like maybe older people you look at and I want to be like that person when I'm older?
No, not really. I have a very odd outlook on life. I'm quite negative, but I'm happy, if that makes sense.
I mean, it sounds like
I don't
happy.
expect much. I think like everything's a little bit shit and make the most of it. Life's short. That's kind of where I come from.
What do you think is negative about that?
I don't know.
Do you think, do you have kind of a negative outlook globally, like about where everything else, like you personally may be fine, but stuff going on out there is...
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, there's things going on in the world that are awful and shouldn't exist, in my opinion. But then again, like I feel that way about politics. I think the whole system is flawed, but I don't have a better idea. So...
What would you change about our system of government?
Oh, God, don't ask me political questions. I'm actually really ignorant when it comes to politics.
Or what do you think isn't working then?
One thing that annoys me the most is, I think marijuana should be legal. I sound like a total hippie here, but it really frustrates me that alcohol is legal. And I know so many people that have been done with weed and had to go to court or pay fines, drug diversion, all these things over something that shouldn't be an issue. So that whole thing frustrates me.
It seems like it's just such a waste of resources.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff, all those court cases, all that bureaucracy, all those police hours could be put to better things. Do you do mastering at all?
No, I've dabbled in mastering, but I'm definitely not a mastering engineer. That's a whole other kettle of fish. I would prefer not to master. Yeah. I would skills aside, I think it's better to have a separate set of ears, hearing the stuff that you may not have heard because you're so used to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard a mastered track of a mix you've done and thought, they fucked it up?
Not yet. I haven't had a lot of stuff professionally mastered yet. Yeah, no. So far I've been happy. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'm sure it'll happen.
All right, well, thanks for talking to me, Nell.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to hear some of Nell's fine work, then head along to the Bearded Lady at any given night, because she'll probably be there mixing the bands behind the desk, probably wearing some cool boots while she does it. I have a lot of creative people on this podcast, and sometimes I give a few updates as to what they're doing after they've been on. So I thought it was time to do that again, because people have been busy. And as I was catching up on what people had been doing, I realized how nearly everybody is linked in some way. It was quite an entertaining exercise for me. So if you'd like to follow along at home, get out the texters and maybe make a chart, because everything is linked, because Brisbane is the smallest city in the world. Harley Young and the Haymakers. So Harley Young from episode 22 and his wife Philippa Perrott, episode 23, have moved to Melbourne. We continue to work on the second Haymakers album. Now that Angela Hibbard from episode 4 has moved back to Brisbane after living in Japan. Also working with Ash Shanahan, of course, as our drummer from episode 1. And we are planning on doing a tour around June or July. Murray Bowler from episode 2 has left the Haymakers, but he's still playing bass for the Bear Hunt. The Bear Hunt have been recording recently with engineer Cam Smith from episodes 29 and 30, and they're playing The Bearded Lady on June the 14th, along with Kelly Lloyd from episode 27. Kelly has been on tour with her band Scream Feeder, supporting their new greatest hits compilation Patterns Form, which is available now, along with her bandmate Tim Stewart from episode 17. Tim is playing a solo show at Betty's Espresso in West End on June the 15th. Tim and Kelly are also playing Betty's together in Screen Feeder on August 17 as part of a special pre-festival sideshow before Sonic Masala Fest 2018 at Greenslopes Bowls Club on August 18, at which Alex Campbell from episode 24, her band Bad Bangers, will be playing. Bad Bangers recently released a new EP entitled Hooray for Everything, and it's available on Bandcamp. Whew. Some of the other people I couldn't quite find a direct link with, including Jeremy Neal, who has been busy, but it was odd I couldn't find a connection for him because he's normally at the centre of everything in Brisbane music. But last week, Jeremy, who was on episode 9, won Rock Song of the Year and Song of the Year at the Queensland Music Awards for his track Dancin' and Romancin' off the album Getting the Team Back Together. He's playing a free in-store at the Sonic Sherpa record store here in Stones Corner before heading off to the United States for a little while. J.M. Dinellen from episode 6 and Caitlin Bliley from episode 13 continue to work on books and be excellent on Twitter. My cousins Jeff and Jono from episodes 5 and 21 continue to make drum and bass music as Echo and Sidetrack and play shows all over the place. They've also put out a few more episodes of their own podcast, The Adventures of Echo and Sidetrack. The episode with photographer Louise Coghill is particularly amazing. Nick Oberhardt and Amy Morgan from episodes 15 and 19, respectively, are getting married next month. I'm going to be a groomsman at the wedding, along with Gehan Palapana from episode 14. Nick recently mentioned to me that he and Amy sometimes get breakfast at Southside Tea Room, which is owned and operated by Patience Hodgson and John Patterson from episode 31, and that the place has recently been undergoing some renovations. So there it is. That's all the happenings that have been happening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Go check out some of those previous guests. I built up quite a nice back catalogue there. Go take a walk, take the dog for a walk, do the dishes, do some ironing, go for a run, go to the gym, get on a bus, get on a train, go to the end of the line, and then come back again. Do something, however you normally listen to podcasts, go do that. If you want to get in contact, I'm at gimmeempathypodcast@gmail.com, on Instagram, Facebook. Drop me a line. Until next time, stay connected.